She said, "You're welcome to the board." And she said, "I'd like to introduce you to Bill Ketcham. Stantec thinks that Bill works for them, but he works for us."
All right. So Bill Ketcham, welcome to the Stantec Design Hive. Tell us who you are and what you do at Stantec. I've known you for a long time, but our listeners may have never heard of you. So,
John, thanks for having me. What have I done? I joined Stantec in 1999. I've been here that's 26 years as of about a month ago. So that's cool. And during that period, I've had the pleasure of working on North Park's campus, which is why we're here since 1999. So that's a good thing. I am a principal here. I focus on design. I would say, jack of all trades, although I'm sort of labeled as higher education. My background is higher education and residential in large measure, and I also spent a little over 5 years working on the restoration of Wrigley Field. Some of the current projects have me migrating more toward traditional design, which I'm enjoying, building buildings that are targeted at 50 to 100-year buildings, and that's a great opportunity for us to really talk about the history of architecture and what that means relative to campuses and things like that. So we can talk about North Park. It's the focus of today.
I know North Park University in part because one of my kids practices soccer right next door, and he also did a soccer camp at North Park, and I had a chance to wander around and find a place to sit down and work and get familiar with it. But tell me what it makes it unique. Where is it in Chicago? And why are we talking about it in relation to you?
We're talking about it in relation to me because it's a roughly 30-year plus client of Stantec and the predecessor firm of VOA. So that's important milestone in that we're able to work on a campus and work on buildings, and we are now on our fourth president. So I think that speaks to trust and relationships, and that's a part of architecture that isn't mentioned a lot. It's not about shiny objects. It's not about a competitive marketplace. It's about service. So we can just sort of park that over there for a minute. This campus started as one building in a cornfield at roughly the intersection of Foster and Kedzie Avenue. That building remains. 1849 is Old Main. And Old Main was built, it was the academic, residential, and administrative building for the Theological Seminary, which is part of the Swedish Covenant Church, which is the founding members of that establishment. Through the years, the second building, Wilson Hall, which was directly west of Old Main, was constructed just prior to the turn of the century. Those two buildings, that was principally an academic building, they served the campus for quite some period of time, and they added a few buildings incrementally over time, but fundamentally, the city of Chicago grew up around it, and the campus began to disappear and was impacted by the residential community that grew up around it. So it sat just off of Foster Avenue, and I remember as a young person, I would drive by and I'd say, "Those are a couple of interesting buildings. What is that?" There were these two lovely brick and stone buildings. Those buildings were the Theological Seminary that became North Park College, that then became North Park University. Here, North Park University, sometime in the late 90s, it became a university by definition. All of that built in, so if you look at aerial photographs from 1968, you can barely find North Park University. It's a series of buildings that are scattered about on residential streets. It is all adjacent to the North Branch of the Chicago River. So where your son played soccer, which is east of Kedzie Avenue, is a soccer field that was developed by this office and first president that we dealt with, David Horner, as a joint venture between North Park University and the Chicago Park District to create a playing field that the Park District could use with reserved times for North Park University. It was an early project in the sequence of things.
You kind of alluded to, at one point, North Park just being sort of a series of buildings in the city. I would say it's obviously evolved since then with your relationship with North Park. And now when you go there, you sort of recognize that, oh, this looks like a university campus in the city. There's a campus that is enclosed, right, to a certain extent.
That's very true. And this was really the vision of David Horner. I think that when he came and was president of this university, and he was getting to the point that enrollment was difficult, and there was no there, which I think is an impolite probably, but a way to describe it. It was a nice school, and it was doing good things, and its mission remains unchanged, but it wasn't a place that would attract kids to come to school there because it was largely invisible. Part of their mission is the integration with the city, but there was no place. Starting in '99, the effort to acquire the remaining buildings that were on Sawyer and Christiana, which were the two streets that came south from Foster to the river, acquire those buildings, demolish those buildings, and provide opportunity for green space and new buildings. So we got to the point in, I think, 2000, it would be 2001, where we built a new library. So the first identified academic need was a library. Mm-hmm. The old library was unusable. It was one of those just post-war to early 60s buildings. Very low floor to floor. Couldn't be air conditioned, couldn't be dealt with in a logical way. It was falling apart. It was in the spirit of mean buildings that were built in that era on most university campuses. So that was the building that was identified to be replaced. We looked at remodeling, couldn't be done. As part of that, we were able to take Sawyer Avenue and Christiana and vacate them through the campus, so that now we had an opportunity for a large enough assembly of land, and still some residential buildings incorporated in that, but we were able to combine that and create green spaces, one behind Old Main and the other in front of the new library, which is the Brandell Library, and a diagonal pathway, heavily landscaped, that connects the two. So we began to get a sense of place in connection with the expansion of academics to the library. There was a campus at one time when it was just the two buildings, Foster Avenue and the river. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All that was gone. So we went back in and we were able to redevelop, if you like, and create campus quads of sort of academic and administrative purpose.
In a way, the big idea is connecting design to education, because the design term would be giving it a sense of place, right? Yeah. Like we talk about that a lot in design, but for a university, they're looking for something that holds the university together, that gives them a sense of mission, that gives the students a sense of, okay, I've arrived somewhere.
I am at a university.
Yeah, I have a new role here because it's a different kind of place than place I was before. So there have been a few different eras at North Park, right? Sort of defined by these changing leaders. And I think you told me about this before. They've sort of had defining missions as leaders. Can you tell us about a few of those leaders and what their missions were?
I'll try. Sure. The first president that we became involved with was David Horner. David Horner is one of those people that is brilliant and insightful and has a great sense of humor. So those are all good things in my perspective. But David came in and he brought with him from where he was stationed, where he was previously, as I think he was the youngest college president in the United States at one point.
Oh, wow.
Not at North Park, but where he was previously. Mm-hmm. And he brought with him Carl Balsam as vice president of finance. The two of them really worked to save the institution, because in the late 1990s, mid-1990s through 1999, prior to the starting of the master plan, don't think the university had a particularly clear identity. So I think that what David, and in his insightful nature, what do we do to restructure the enrollment? How do we restructure a campus and create a campus? And how do we structure the economics of it so that we can survive as an institution and students can afford to go there and get this education that is independent, faith-based, and rooted in Chicago? It's all of those things. So it's all terrific in that regard. So I think he led the transformation of North Park University into a campus that was more welcoming to commuter students, big outreach there, as well as the sort of students in residence that they had. We developed recreational opportunities as well as academic opportunities, and part of the greening of the campus, and I keep going back to that, but the library, the greening, and the expansion of offerings to the students, including parking, which is important, really developed this feeling that this place was very special. And you've been there, I think you understand, when you step off of Foster Avenue into that campus, it is a remarkably calm, peaceful, and beautiful place.
A donor made something possible that contributes to the don't forget the donors, that contributes to the greening of the campus. That I thought this was kind of remarkable.
It is. It's an alum, I believe, and it's an anonymous. I mean, we know who it is, but it's anonymous relative to this conversation. Donor put up $5.5 million to move all of the utilities that were parts of those streets underground. So what used to be streets and alleys, City of Chicago style, with overhead wiring for telephone, electrical, and other things, has all been moved underground. And that was a sort of an unnoticed but incredibly important contribution to the beautification of that environment.
Yeah, and visually that's a big part of what makes
it wouldn't work. Right? You have to... There were other components of the greening of campus that also had to do with an ADA audit, that the buildings weren't accessible for the most part. So part of the greening of the campus began to shape the horizontal environment to get into buildings. We were able to add rear entrances to buildings that used to be on alleys that weren't alleys anymore, to make these buildings just inherently feel better and feel more collegial and collegiate.
You know, one of the things you mentioned in one of our other conversations about the leadership under Carl Balsam was this idea of an incremental improvement.
It is true. Carl had two principal roles there. He was our project manager on all projects, up to and including the last two before he left the camp. He retired. He was chief financial officer, so he was very in tune with the finances of everything. But he had this attitude about incremental improvement. And it was like every day, if you can do one thing to enhance the experience of these kids, then the campus is better, the campus will last longer, and the education will be more meaningful. And we would walk campus. We'd have breakfast once a week, and we would walk the campus. And sometimes you'd swear, but you would say, "Oh, there's a bulletin board there. Did they have to tape it to the wall?" So then we say, "Well, we need more bulletin boards." We'd figure out ways to improve overall signage, so wayfinding became easy, and you just incrementally get that in the buildings. You go through buildings, and you go, "There's no public display in this building. Let's talk about how you're going to access the building and how you're going to put work on the walls, how you're going to paint them, where the kid's going to land, where's the commuter lounge, how's all that work in an effective way." And it was constant with Carl. And part of being embedded as a master planner and campus architect, I guess is as good a role as any to describe me, their facilities people will call me up and say, "Gee, Bill, I hate to bother you, but we got to change the carpet in the elevator in Magnuson." And we'll go, "Okay, Carl, can you meet me there at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning?" And he'll say, "Yes, we'll change the carpet," and that's an incremental improvement. And it's not, no project is too small or too uninteresting to us, and they know that. They understand that each one of these decisions helps make it a better place. And Carl really was instrumental in getting that attitude sort of down into the facilities group and in the academians' role. They sometimes resist these things because they get comfortable. We can't let them be too comfortable. That upset them periodically. That's okay.
Well, if you think about it, if you're taking care of all those little things along the way, then you might feel more confident to when the next big milestone project comes along. Hey, we don't have a backlog of little things. We've been.
No, you pick them off. Every summer is an adventure on the university campus, and we're in there helping them on all their little stuff because it's important to them, and it keeps us there, which is good. And we have projects now that aren't particularly challenging architecturally, but we currently have a $5.5 million grant from the state of Illinois to upgrade the mechanical infrastructure of 5 buildings on campus. And we're in the process. We've rebuilt the boilers, we've replaced the chillers, we've changed the distribution, we've repaired the steam tunnels, and now this summer we're renovating Old Main and Wilson Hall. The 2 oldest buildings on campus are getting upgraded mechanically, getting their finishes taken care of, new lighting, new electrical, new fire protection, all of those very important things to bring those buildings up to current. And that stuff is really nice. It helps us, it helps them, and their front door to the campus is going to be vastly improved.
Tell me a little bit about there's another milestone project I'm thinking of, but that maybe you could use as an example of this balance between delivering what the school needs and what the donor has in mind for their big donation.
David Horner retired from North Park University around 2005-ish. And the new president came in from the East Coast, David Parkin. We were looking at what would be the next project on campus. We had completed the library, recreation center, the athletic fields, campus greening, number of projects on campus under David Horner, and now David Parkin. It wasn't like everyone had to be named David. But under Dr. Parkin, interesting, the same donor that did the anonymous donation for the underground utilities came forward with a donation saying what the campus needs is a campus center. And it was a sizable contribution promise. And the site was selected, again, by this particular donor, and anonymous. And we went through a process of designing this student union. The student union was going to have a theater space, a cafeteria, a bookstore, some recreational spaces, gathering spaces, all of these components. And the president said, we have all those. We have a campus center, but it's a distributed campus center. Do we need a student union if we have all those components and they're distributed, when what we really have is a failing of our academic science center? It's out of date, it's underperforming, it's not attracting student body, it's a real problem. We really need to build an academic science building. And he went to the donor and said, I'm sure it was a difficult conversation where he said the priorities of the institution really are academic. All that record, it's all great. Thank you very much. Love it. But right now, as we do our analysis of where we are as an institution, sciences are where we need to focus. So that led to the biggest capital campaign and the biggest project yet ever on the North Park campus, which is the Johnson Center for Science and Community Life. It's important to say and community life because that donor stayed with the institution, stayed active on the board, kept their donation in place, and did student support functions. And there's a cafe on the ground floor of the Johnson Center, 4-story building, 1 below grade, and then 3 stories above grade. Left that money in the building and helped us create a building that was mixed use. Science is on the upper floors and lower level. And then this student support function, which was the part of the student union that was most needed, and put that in there. So it's a centralized location for academics and student support. So that was risky and dangerous and successful. So that does still remain the largest campaign and the largest building on campus. It increased their academic teaching space by 40 to 60%.
Oh, wow.
And replaced all of their laboratories.
With that example in mind,
amazing project.
That makes me think, how embedded are you in their programming assessment? Like if they're taking stock in what they have all the time and figuring out what they need.
Well, their provost and their president set the academic direction of the institution.
Sure.
And they understand where the limitations are within the campus that they have. We have a building on campus that was built in 1970, Carlson Tower, named after an incredible graduate of the university who was killed in World War II. And this building is named for him, and we're taking it down. The 10-year plan has that building coming down and being replaced with a new academic building because it just doesn't function as an academic building anymore. And there has been analysis done of that building, of the academic offerings that need to be made, and where they're likely to be. So that's interesting. So when we went to the board to talk through the process of a new academic building on a site that we won't talk about yet, but we can talk about later if there's time. All of the analysis of what they had and what they needed led to a decision that it was not worth investing in Carlson Tower anymore. If we take the tower down but keep the lower levels, we can support athletics, we can support the nursing program, but we can get rid of the tower, which has really, really low functioning academic spaces. It's a miserable building. Good from a teaching standpoint, it's not good from just being in it standpoint. It's just awful.
That's very interesting. But
that's what it was. So you asked me the question. So we were presenting at the board meeting.
Right.
So at the board meeting, President 4, which is Mary Surridge, who's the current president, she said, "You're welcome to the board." And she said, "I'd like to introduce you to Bill Ketcham. Stantec thinks that Bill works for them, but he works for us." That's a great introduction. And that's an attitude the institution had that talks about, what you're asking. Is to, how do you fit in? It's like any conversation, if there's a presidential breakfast and you're talking about initiatives, academic and what that might have impact in the physical nature of the campus, don't invite me to join them. Mm-hmm. That's great. It's a wonderful, wonderful relationship.
Yeah, and the longevity, makes that possible, right? So tell us about the two big sort of projects that are in the works.
There's three.
Okay, well,
there's three.
Start with two and then get to the third one.
It's interesting. When we made the presentation about the removal of Carlson Tower and the new academic building, we were planning an academic building. We studied multiple sites on campus as to where we could best plant a building for the long-term success. And we identified a site. We did preliminary planning and programming. We know how big it's going to be. It's about 80 to 100,000 square feet of academics. We looked at that, and then through that process, it also became evident that they have two significant issues on campus. And one is enrolling students and retaining them. So recruit and retain are really what they need to focus on. And academically, they can, with the Johnson Center and some other classroom conversions and a little bit of work in a building called LHA, which is attached to Carlson, they can increase the academic spaces, but they have issues with recruitment, that's housing, and with retention, that's housing and student support. Currently, the three projects are the academic building, which is now pushed out probably 5 years, and today, we are working on two major initiatives. The first is an residential quad, which will be south of the river, which will include river enhancements. So really for the first time, North Park University will have the river as a feature that runs through it rather than a risk that runs through it. Part of that is they have taken a dam out that was downstream dam that would add to flooding in the area, and they've also completed part of Deep Tunnel directly east of there. And since the dam was taken out and Deep Tunnel was connected, we have not had a flood on campus for now a little over 3 years, which is great, which allows us to focus on other things. So they're in the process of acquiring the last buildings that they have not acquired on Spalding Avenue, south of campus, adjacent to current dining hall. When we get those, we will expand the planned development. We will demolish those buildings over time, and we will construct new residential and student engagement, meaning activity centers. So when that's all done, we will vacate Spalding Avenue, we will terminate Carmen Avenue, and we will now have a pedestrian connection from Argyle to the south all the way over the river into Foster Avenue. As part of that plan, we're looking to do a land bridge over the river that will physically connect the new landscape initiatives to the south to the previous landscape initiatives in the center of campus. That's number one. That's project number one.
Wow.
The other project is that the Brandel Library, which we started in right around 2000, has its 25th anniversary coming up next year. So it must have been completed in '01. As part of that 25th year anniversary, we're renovating Brandel. We're doing all the maintenance upgrades of that building in terms of mechanical systems. But the main entry floor, which used to be research library, and those demographics have changed, is going to become Student Success Center. And the Student Success Center is, why do you need such a thing? It's about retention. It's about getting graduates. If you don't have alumni, you don't have people to fund future projects. And if you don't have graduates, you don't have alumni. So these are issues, and they're real. And that's not the driver, but what differentiates North Park University? Mary Surridge, in the kickoff meeting with all of the members of the people who would be potentially moving into the Student Success Center, I said, we're here to program. There's the agenda on the wall. Mary, would you like to frame it? Mary said, the purpose of this building is to fulfill the promise that we made to the students when they enrolled here. It's amazing. So that what is embodied in this institution is that attitude. That we promised you. And with the demographic shift that so many of the kids there are first generation college educated, And a huge measure of them are not English as first language, and many of them are also foreign, coming in from Asia, and a lot of Korean students. And that demographic is different. And the kids that are first generation don't have a family structure at home saying, it's really important for you to get this degree. They're saying, get a job and make some money. And there's a lot of pressure for these kids to not stay. But if we have a place where they are learning with cohorts who have been through this experience and have been successful, and they have alumni coming in and talking to them about success, it's to guide them and to counsel them and to get them to matriculate. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and there's less attrition if you can see what you're working toward.
That's right.
How it's going to play out in the marketplace of the career marketplace, right? Or,
If I could say, John, you've got to stay here because you're kind of like me, and here's been my experience, it works. The whole attitude about why you do it. However, it's support emotionally and academic. It's a writing center. There's counseling centers. There's there's employment opportunities. That's where you're going to get internships. That's where you're going to do mock interviews so you know how to go to an interview. It's where they have a black jacket in your size so that you can get your picture taken and add it to your resume and send it off. All the transactional stuff will stay in the Johnson Center. This isn't where you come to pay your bill. It isn't where you come to sign up for your courses. It's where you come to just to walk the path.
yeah, it's a skilled sort of education.
Yeah.
Right? It's that life skills sort of
All of that.
part of school.
And it will be open to the students August 15th of next year, in time for the anniversary of the building. So we'll have our 25th year rededication. We are also, that's important to know, the academic component of that is that we are adding 2 significant classrooms and seminar rooms to the Brandell Library, so it has an academic component for those first-year students who get those first-year introductory courses are right there in the Student Success Center. So they're supported the day they walk in the building. It's pretty critical.
Great.
I meant to also say the testing center is in this building also.
It sounds like the Student Success Center is sort of multi-functional, preparing students for life after college. Fair to say that's kind of the big mission.
And what the testing center does, I know it's too much. It supports kids that are maybe on the spectrum, and they need to take their test. It takes them longer, or they need a controlled environment. They can't have distraction. It provides that environment under a watchful eye to help get them through that component of education as well.
As a designer, what's the design thread that connects everything you've done at North Park? Is there a theme when you look back on everything that we've touched? So not so much about the relationship. Drop
This architecturally.
Yeah, architecturally or
waste no asset would be one. I think incremental improvement, waste no asset, be opportunistic where you can. We have, I have to say, I haven't torn down an academic building yet. I relish tearing down Carlson Town. But no, we haven't torn down a building, we renovated. So the historical fabric remains. And part of my aging is, I don't want to be torn down yet. Part of my aging is that renewed respect for what the architects of the past did. So there's projects like Hanson Hall, which are 1946. It was and is the music building. It was an awful music building. It was a music building. So we kept it the music building, but we completely renovated it, tore everything out of it, made it accessible, made it work acoustically, has performance space in it now, as well as rehearsal spaces, and becomes a teaching environment that actually works for music. It didn't before, but where it sits on campus is an important location relative to where it sits next to Caroline Hall, where it sits next to the former president's house, next to Wilson Hall, next to Old Main. From a material standpoint, everything that we build on campus, we try to be respectful of the landscape, because that's a huge investment. It's important. We try to, where we can, shield things with fences and walls so the mechanical systems aren't visible and distracting to kids as they walk through the campus. Wayfinding is really simple because it's everything's kind of right there. Architecturally trying to stick with building scale and materials that relate to the historical buildings on campus. So the Johnson Center is gigantic. If you go and look at it, you'll go, that's a really big building, but it kind of looks like it's been here forever. And it looks like it's been there forever. We planted mature trees that we had grown on its site as a nursery prior to building the building. So
That's a great trick.
anticipating that stuff would come. So when you're able to plant 40-foot pine trees in front of a new building, it makes a difference. It also, if you look at the building sort of specifically and you go to Old Main, it has a split-face limestone foundation, and it's brick. Johnson Center has a split-face stone base. Its belt course aligns exactly with Old Main, so its first floor is the same dimension above grade as Old Main. Its lower level, although fully accessible in this case, with landscape courtyards around it to get light in it, is reasonable. And the 4 stories above it are terracotta clad that are the color of Old Main. And proportionately, the building is broken into 4 modules, all of which are the same proportion of Old Main. So if you were to grab Old Main and lay its elevation over, it would fit fairly precisely in one of the modules of the Johnson Center. So there's we're putting a 100,000 square foot building on a campus that's got nothing bigger than 8,000. It's a big deal to go in there and have it not just, everybody's kind of afraid of it, frankly, in the beginning, myself included. But breaking its proportion down to fit within the scale of the campus and the smaller historic buildings and material.
Yeah, making reference to what's there is kind of acknowledging it, but not literally not trying to reproduce it.
And it's modern. I mean, it is a modern building.
Yeah.
It's clay tile rain screen. Old Main is 4 wide ancient masonry, and it doesn't have a slate roof on it. It's got a flat roof, but that's not the issue. The issue is sort of local respect.
Well, Bill, thanks so much for joining us on the Design Hive. Sounds like
you get 10 minutes of content, John?
I hope so. We could always do it again.
I'm worn out.
Yeah, if you're not exhausted at the end of the Design Hive, I'm sorry, we haven't done our job. But thanks for coming here. And it sounds like we'll have more to talk about in a couple more years. We'll have a few more projects, and hope to have you back soon.
And I want to encourage anyone who likes the story to go and just walk the campus. Go on a Saturday morning, walk through the campus, stop at Trey Kroner, have some breakfast, and it's a great experience.
Yeah, it's a cool place for sure. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you, John.